Hi guys, welcome to our AP review. This was not the original intent of this YouTube channel, but it's what we're doing right now. This is also not exactly how I wanted to video this, but getting my brother in here and getting stuff edited in enough time for you to actually make use of this stuff was becoming a little problematic. So today we're going to start with a Unit 1. I'm going to begin by giving you a little reminder of the breakdown of the test. The Unit 1 review will be really short for reasons that I will make available. So I'll flip over real quick and grab some slides for you guys that I think will be um, helpful as we move through this. We do some reminders about everything you have forgotten from Unit 1. So again, Unit 1 does cover that 1492 to 1607 period. Really, we're talking about Native Americans and first contact. Now, this is a reminder, your exam is set for May 6th. That is a Friday. It is a morning exam, and you do have those four sections that you need to prepare for. Again, if you're looking for things based on how much of your grade is coming from it to focus on, I would highly recommend focusing again on that document-based question. And we do have reviews for that and practices for that set up on AP Classroom for you guys. So if you're still not sure about DBQs, hop on and take a look at that. Now, as far as what periods, what units you need to be focusing on, we're going to talk about Unit 1 in this video, but Unit 1 is actually where the least amount of your exam is going to come from. These percentages are put out there by the College Board. And if you'll look, Unit 1 is actually where the least amount of your exam is going to come from. So if you're starting to panic and you're trying to pick places to study, really focus your efforts on Units 3 through 8, particularly Units 3, 5, and 7, as those cover a large amount of really important content material. With that said, though, we are going to review some of the important highlights from Unit 1. So Unit 1 starts with the first contact between Europeans and Native Americans. And we all learned the little rhyme in elementary school. And in 1492, this dude sailed the ocean blue. And he discovered the New World, which is amazing and awesome and great, except that it was only a new world to Europeans. Remember, Native Americans discovered this land thousands of years ago by traveling, we believe now, from Asia over the Bering Strait, over a land bridge that was there. And in that time, they had created literally thousands of different cultures, vibrant cultures, their own belief systems. So this is not a new world for Native Americans. Now, because this is a U.S. history class, AP is most concerned that you know more about the groups of people living in what is today the continental United States. In particular, there are three sort of cultural groups that you need to know about. The Eastern Woodlands peoples live on the East Coast. These groups are largely settled people. They are agrarian in nature, they farm. They may move from farm place to farm place, but they're not necessarily a nomadic people. They tend to build villages and live in them for an extended amount of time. The next group are the Plains peoples of the Midwest. These are a nomadic people. The Plains peoples tend to follow the herds of bison, as the bison provide pretty much all the things that they need. And the third group are the people of the Southwest, the Puebloan peoples. They are also largely an agrarian society. They have learned to build irrigation to allow for the planting of crops in the desert. So these are all fairly advanced groups of people who are going to make contact with the Native Americans, with the Europeans. So when these two groups make contact, there are cultural exchanges. There are also exchanges of goods that occur. And this exchange of goods between Native Americans and Europeans is known as the Columbian Exchange. If something were going to turn up on the AP exam, the Columbian Exchange is a good candidate for that, a really good candidate. So I would be familiar with this, as you guys saw on your little practice test we did. One of the long essay questions asked you about the effects that the Columbian Exchange had on Native Americans and Europeans. If you're planning to take AP Euro in the future, I've seen that same question show up on the AP Euro exam. So knowing the Columbian Exchange is never a bad thing at all. So essentially, when we say Columbian exchange, we're just talking about the exchange of goods between Europe and North America. Europe gets a lot of good things from North America. So for Europeans, the Columbian exchange is actually a very positive thing. We're going to get things like potatoes and tomatoes, stuff that we consider to be staples of European cuisine, actually have no place in Europe prior to 1492. So there are large amounts of food that is entering Europe. This changes the European economy, it boosts the European economy, and it actually drops the price of food, making it possible for there to be somewhat of a population boom in Europe. So, by far and above, this is a positive experience for Europeans. Um, it's less of a good experience for Native Americans um, at all. Um, this it's less positive. And the reason for this is that many of the goods that Europeans bring with them are invasive species. Uh, in particular, livestock, cows, sheep, pigs, horses. These are invasive species. And pigs, in particular, are incredibly destructive. Pigs kind of root around and can really cause problems. They actually destroy a lot of native plants by their rooting around and digging them up. And that means the animals that once fed on those plants are now endangered. So many of the invasive species introduced into North America have a terrible effect on the ecology of North America. Not only that, Europeans bring diseases with them, diseases that Native Americans have never encountered before. And as the recent COVID pandemic has taught us, if you don't have any immunity to a disease, it can be pretty devastating on your society and on people in general. And so Native Americans die by the thousands of diseases like smallpox, the flu, measles, malaria, whooping cough. And as more and more people die, some cultures vanish entirely. There are not enough people left of those cultures to continue them on. They have to go and join other groups of people. And we start to get amalgamated confederacies, like the Creek Confederacy of the Southwest or Southeast. So the Creek actually were not one unified group of people. They were actually small groups of people who had been decimated by disease who sort of come together and create this new confederacy of Native Americans for mutual protection. So the big idea of the Columbian Exchange is it's good for Europeans. It's incredibly bad for North America and for Native Americans. They don't really get anything good out of this exchange. Another thing to take away from this is the beginnings of slavery in North and in South America. Slavery will be introduced by the Spanish and then refined by the British. And we will talk more about how the British refine it when we do some of the Unit 2 review. But one thing that always comes up is, well, didn't slavery exist everywhere? Didn't Africans have slaves? And didn't Native Americans have slaves? That is true. Slavery exists in most Native American societies, and it existed in most African societies during this period. It is very different than European slavery. This is a good point to talk about the differences in slavery between these cultures, just so that you have an understanding of why the slavery that develops in the North American South is so weird in many respects. Traditionally, slavery among Africans and Native Americans are very similar. Um, Slavery evolves as a way to deal with POWs or to fill holes in society left by conflicts. So some people in your group were killed. So you go out to another group and you kidnap some people to take their place. You hold those people as slaves while you integrate them into your society to fill those holes that have been left behind. Europeans aren't interested, though, in integrating people into their society. They're looking for labor. So European slaves only have value as long as they are able to provide labor. The duration for in Africa and among Native Americans, slavery is typically not a lifelong institution. It could be, but not usually. Usually, after you have integrated yourself with that society, you receive your freedom. It will become lifelong among Europeans. Once you're a slave, it is incredibly difficult to get your freedom in a European society. Both in Africa and among Native Americans, slaves do have some legal rights. There are levels of treatment they are supposed to receive. And there's really no social stigma connected to having been a slave. Some slaves attain high government offices in Africa. In among Native American societies, slaves are not treated vastly different from free people. Among Europeans, though, slaves have no legal rights. They are physically considered property of the people who own them. And when it comes to children, if you were born in Africa or in a Native American society and your parents are slaves, you're free. That condition does not follow you, and there is no stigma attached to your parents having been slaves. But in European society, slavery follows the condition of the mother, and that will continue all the way up through the American Civil War. If your mother is a slave, you are also a slave. This is where things get shady and sketchy. The reason they choose the mother is because even at this early date, so many European men are having relations with their female slaves. But they have no desire to recognize the children of those unions. Those unions are illegal in European society. So they want those children to remain slaves. So that is why slavery always follows the condition of the mother, and it's lifelong. So if your mother is a slave, you are a slave for your whole life. Doesn't matter if your father was white or not, you are in fact a slave. And of course, in European society, slavery is going to be race based. Among Native Americans and Africans, slavery was not necessarily race based. Anybody could be enslaved and then could get their freedom within the society. So this was just a quick rundown of what is happening in our unit. In our unit one, again, not a lot to take away from that. That is not a major unit. In our next unit, though, we'll start talking a little bit about British colonization of the New World because more of your test is going to come from that area. So I will see you guys soon.